Digital Dominoes.
Hello and welcome to our special series where we share the moving stories of parents who have had to become privacy champions for their children, specifically within the school environment. These stories are about the moments when those parents realized that they needed to take action to protect their children's digital lives at school. By sharing them, we aim to motivate other parents to do the same. Today I'm talking to Christer Veland in Oslo, Norway, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And what I find really interesting about your background is that you actually have a tech background, so you're able to see this whole privacy issue from a different perspective, which I'm looking forward to sharing with others. So can you just start and tell us a little bit about how you got to become a parent with a passion for privacy?
I've been working in the IT and tech business for almost 20 years now. So my passion has always been in that space between computers and humans. First and foremost with the UX perspective and sort of building great products and things. But after having kids, you start to think about consequences in a different way. And then your kids are suddenly getting into a space where they want their own devices. You're starting to maybe borrowing your own iPads to the kids and things to play games and do fun stuff when they're young. And you don't think much about privacy in that sense. But then together with building products, which is like for Norwegian brands and for international brands, been working with media and retail, I've been gradually building a knowledge and understanding of how everything works inside the ecosystems, right?
So from the other side.
Yeah. So I'm building like strong marketing AI controlled apps where we harvest a lot of data from end users. At the same time, I'm giving devices to my own kids. And then when my oldest daughter were in third grade here in Norway, there was a big change. Well, we basically got a letter from school saying that we've been using iPads in the classroom for 2 weeks. And that was the first message. They already been using it for 2 weeks. And I have so many questions, right, about that iPad. How do you use it? What's the privacy? Is internet fully open? Have you restricted it somehow? Yeah, I had tons of questions, of course. And then I asked my school about it, and I didn't really get any good answers on any of the questions. Basically, it felt like we're just testing it out and see how it works. Because the government has said that this is coming, and municipality has decided that, well, we're going all in on this device, basically. So very fast, we basically replaced school books with the iPads in my municipality and my school. And that created a whole lot of other worries, of course, as well, when it comes to learning and all sorts of things. But I particularly took a step into the privacy and setting up good boundaries when it comes to what should kids in third grade access on the internet, basically, in the classroom. And 2 more weeks went, and the kids started flashing each other with pornography in the classroom, which is like, all right, that's enough. This is my case now, and I'll take this as far as I have to.
In the third grade?
Yeah, sure.
Third grade, that's like 8-9 years old in Norway too, right?
Yeah, it is. So the reaction from the Norwegian school was basically, I'm sorry your kids was experiencing trauma. If the kid needs someone to talk to, we're here. And I'm like, well, we're here too. We'll talk to our kid. That's no problem. What I need you guys to do is to start closing down the open internet and having good privacy and understand what you actually roll out to the kids, basically. So that started my journey where this is back in 2017. I wrote this letter with my kids' experience, screenshots with pornography and everything sent to the ministries in Norway, Ministry of Education and to our parliament. And we invited ourselves there to the group that deals with education in the parliament. And I would say within a few months, we had 100% vote to introduce what we say a content filter for 1st to 4th grade in elementary school here in Norway. That took like a full year to process then in the department. So that means like 18 months later.
Wow.
So the process was complete. And that process ended up with the guidance, basically, in written form, where instead of having like a filter by law that all municipalities needs to have this basic filter in place, They only were given this description on, well, you should have it in place, but how you do it, that's up to you. That's what we ended up with.
I was just talking to Daniel in Spain about how Google was negotiating directly with his school. And it seems, once again, quite a power imbalance. These schools, I mean, they don't have that expertise. The schools to understand even how to protect the internet. They probably, I mean, Norway is a country with more money than other countries, but still, do they have money to invest in experts, do this properly? I mean, wow.
I'm doing all this on my spare time voluntarily. I have another day job, of course. But just this autumn, I was talking to the central authorities here in Norway, where they try to still help the municipalities to put this in place. So we haven't really got much further than what we did in 2017. How long is that? Like 7 years? 7, almost 8 years? And we're still almost at the same point. And what does it boil down to? Well, it boils down to lack of competence, basically. And the municipalities, they have no chance of getting this competence because there are too few people who can sort of work in the municipalities with this. So basically, we need to centralize this competence. We need to ensure that the municipalities are hooked into that centralized infrastructure so that this has a high quality and has a very good way of running things over time. And it's still a very long way to go. We're still on a paper level on this. I mean, the Norwegian government hasn't built any technology to approach this or set up any technology for this. And this is what they need to do, basically. Yeah, it takes a long time.
Wow. When we were prepping for this, you were telling me about your personal experiences with, actually, I think it was the school, not only the school, but also the whole municipality, about how you showed them that the data that was flowed. That was so fascinating for me.
Yeah, I could tell you a little about that because it started with me getting tired of writing chronicles in the newspapers, and
Okay.
I started building a network with different professionals, and we're all writing chronicles about sort of the symptoms and the problems and kind of like the whole society is doing at this point in time, right? But as an IT person, I can do something different. That's what I thought. So went to the shop and bought myself a 4G router, subscribed to an extra SIM card, put it in, and then I have isolated router with its own network, basically. And what I then could do was visiting parents around in different municipalities. And that's what I've been doing. I've sort of been traveling here and there in and around Oslo to different municipalities, probably 5, 6 different ones, testing iPads and PCs. Don't think I tested Chromebooks yet. I will, probably, very soon. And then I could have, let's take an example in Drammen. Took a first grade iPad, basically connected to my router. And then I only have that iPad connected to the router. So basically everything I see of traffic in that router is the iPad and nothing else, basically. And then I connect the router to a system I use personally, AdGuard, which has a great DNS service. What that means is that all the traffic that goes through AdGuard and my router is then analyzed by AdGuard. They don't see any other content on the web. It's basically like a phone book. So if I want to go to BBC, I type in bbc.co.uk and that will link it to an IP address. So that is basically everything it does. But everything on the web needs that phone book. So that means also everything that has to do with advertisement or privacy addresses is also in the phone book, basically. And AdGuard is really good at categorizing all this traffic. So what I get from plugging in my phone or an iPad or any device that's connected to the web, I can actually count the number of phone book lookups or data exchanges that goes to the advertising networks or to the actual server where I'm interested in getting the content. So I get these statistics where it's divided in groups, which is great. So what I see from taking this first grade iPad connected to the router to AdGuard, then I spend like an hour on the iPad surfing some Norwegian news media. I'm surfing some school apps. Then we go into some gaming sites that we know that kids always figure out if they don't want to do schoolwork. They always go to these spillespill.no is one of them that we call in Norway. There are tons of them. And we go to different Google searches and YouTube and we browse a bit like a kid. So we talk to the parents about how the kids use the iPad and so on. And then after an hour, we go into AdGuard and look at the statistics. And what we see is basically on an iPad, we see that 20 to 24% of the traffic is linked to advertisement networks. So that means like almost 1/4, at least 1/5 of all the traffic on the iPad within that hour is advertisement networks traffic, which is crazy, to be honest. And what I tell them when
I mean, like advertising sent to the iPad or information about the person on the iPad sent to advertising?
well, this is the iPad who is sending traffic to the advertisement networks. That can happen in two ways. One way is that to actively go into, let's say you take a newspaper that has advertisements, right? Then we all see visible advertisements on that newspaper. It can be when you're scrolling down, it can be on the sides, it can be everywhere, right? That is sort of the visible parts of the advertisement networks. That is about 10% of the total advertisement traffic. The rest is about user behavior.
Oh,
So the rest is about where do you stop? How long do you stop? When do you start to scroll on? What do you click on? What do you see, basically? What do you do on the websites or in the apps? That is 90% of that traffic, right? And these kids have not given a consent to collect this data. And when you think about it, well, you could always think, well, the kids are not logged in, so how do they know who it is? Well, they know who it is based on IP addresses. That's sort of the easiest way. They can also know it if you go to a site that's called MIUnique, I think it's miunique.org or .com. Then you can see if your own device, how unique is your own Mac or PC on the internet, actually. And you will figure out that your device is actually very unique on the internet. It sort of has its own fingerprint based on all the things it sends to the websites you visit. So basically, you're almost logged in without being logged in, right? So it's not very hard to collect this data and aggregate it on your machine. And then over time, we understand that this is the same person, basically moving between 3 IP addresses. It could be a home, it could be a school, maybe some other place. And then you can build a very strong profile on people without being logged in, basically. So this is the real worry. I'm thinking like what I'm telling the municipalities that I have a button in AdGuard. I can actually just click block, and then I go down to 0% ad traffic on this device. And then my question is like, this is so easy to block. And why don't you block it, right? So when I tell them, they block it. And that's interesting. So basically what it boils down to is like, this is lack of competence. This is lack of knowledge. They don't know about the advertisement networks. They don't know enough about privacy in general. And they don't know enough about the possible technical solutions to this, because it's possible. So some municipalities are considering acquiring software like AdGuards or setting up their own, because you could run your own software. It could be on a municipality level, it could be on a national level if you want, but you could also buy it from a lot of different providers. And the other way you could do it, especially with the younger kids, is introducing like an approval filter, or what we used to call a whitelist filter. And that will basically take away all third-party traffic. So that is, we have now 2 municipalities who's testing the whitelist filter. And that means you basically just go through a list where you approve all the sites and the app's background servers that should be possible to access from especially the youngest kids. Now there's clear recommendation from the government to do this from 1st to 7th grade. And that will effectively just open the sites you're supposed to access, and all the advertisement networks won't be able to be accessed from the apps. So that is very effective. This has been a long and tedious work. I've been sharing my insights also to the government about this. There's been many rounds in the parliament with different political parties and things. So we see a change, but still it's a very theoretic way of discussing it on one end. And I'm looking at well, this is very easy. So please just get started. I mean, just press that button or whitelist. That's the 2 options, right? So yeah.
Wow.
That's where we are.
It's always nice to talk to like a tech expert on these things as well, right? Like I didn't know that about agar and pushing the button and making it stop. You would think that it would be done. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speechless right now. But there was another thing you told me, and I want to talk about because I quoted it actually in the episode that's airing tomorrow for the first time. When your school switched to iPads, you were mentioning your experience in digital transformation. That's the way. That's not a best practice that you don't change from one moment to the next.
I've been also been writing about this in the press as a chronicle as well, where I have this tabloid title called "Throw the iPads Out of the Classroom" or something in that sense. If we read further down, a person who work with development, I'm also teaching other colleagues all the time about how to do development. I know algorithmic thinking and all these terms that they try to bring into school. To be honest, I'm more worried about all the other subjects, like all the other things that we need in society. Like we need people in healthcare and to construct buildings and everything. But now we basically just threw out all the basic knowledge and the basic learning in Norwegian school. And we went into the big promise that everything is going to be solved by AI, personal learning on the iPad and on the screen, basically. So we went like super fast into throwing out all the practical stuff, throwing out basic mathematics and things, and sort of hoping that the mathematics apps will help the kid. I don't have to go further than my own kids to see that already from third grade, they're starting learning less. We as parents had to step up very fast to help them evolve in the subjects in a way that we would expect. And I can see that, well, never spend so many hours sitting with my kids at home, just teaching them the basics that they don't learn in school anymore. Like basic, how do you think, how do you write, how do you calculate in between the task and the answer, all these basic stuff. How do you use your pencil with it? They just stop learning all of this in school very, very rapid. I believe this had great consequence now for many kids in Norway. We sort of have a lost generation when it comes to the way it was introduced. I sometimes talk about this as the most catastrophic failure I've ever seen when it comes to digitalizing something in the society. And I've been working probably with 20 different digitalization projects in private and public sector. And this way of digitalizing is something that really breaks with every modern way of digitalizing, where we basically put the user's needs first, right? And who is the user? It's a student, right? And also the student together with teacher and the parents. So, but the student was never involved in this digitalization. This was a top-down approach. This was something that the politicians wanted, because they said that, well, we'll basically be proud of ourselves because we digitalized Norwegian school. And they did it just by acquiring devices. And then they were done, right? And that's terrible, right? That's no way of digitalizing. You have to do insight work. You have to understand the needs. You have to understand if it benefits more than what they have from before. You need to understand the friction points and where it's value. And you have to use it right. And there was little or no guidance for the teachers on how to use this. They were basically taking away a lot of resources like books, and they were just given this one resource instead. So they were given less, in my opinion, than what they had, basically.
Well, I think that's incredible what the teachers must have had to do to achieve in such a short amount of time. And what's interesting is you were talking, and I think this is a general problem with like online safety, digitalization, is that we don't ask actually kids. As a society, we're used to doing things for kids. But in the digital society, we can't do that anymore. They have to be much more like empowered and involved. And the way you describe it makes that so clear, because you wouldn't do that in an office because you want the company to keep running. And so it should be the same kind of process, right? It's ask the user, which is the kids. We have to ask them. We cannot decide for them what they need. And that's such an important message and something to think about.
And there's another aspect, which is very frustrating, because maybe we haven't thought about this enough earlier, because we took it for granted. Like parents could always look at the papers and the books the kids had home, right? Kind of to get updated, browse around and see what this year is about, what you're supposed to learn, how things are going. But what we also see by digitalizing schoolwork and school books into the iPads and the PCs is that parents lose access to that information. There is no way for parents to log into these systems. Well, there could be, because on the technical side, everything's possible, right? But the people who roll it out and decide on the setup and how to do this really haven't given parent access to the schoolwork. That also goes for the youngest kids. So you basically have to force your kid to tell him or her the password. And then you have to trick your kid to get the password and log in, and you have to figure out where the schoolwork is, right? If your kid has a bad day, you can just forget to be able to look at the schoolwork. This is actually pushing some laws in Norway, and I guess in most countries, like parents should be involved and are encouraged to be involved in schoolwork and in the kids' lives. It's been taken away a bit with the digital solutions, which is lacking features on this, basically to properly work with school-home collaboration, which is it's very highly regarded in Norway. They talk a lot about this home school collaboration. And one of the consequences of digitalizing and not being able to answer about privacy and the content filtering and all these basic criteria has made that collaboration between home and school to collapse, actually, in Norway. The trust has actually collapsed. We had a high trust before, and I would say it's not the parents' fault or the teacher's fault. This has happened as a systemic error that has really created a huge problem for both the teachers and the parents and the kids. So this needs to be corrected. I mean, we need to rebalance that so that it can work really well again, because that's one of the biggest success criteria for school, I would say.
Well, I would say too, I hope you continue to move slowly, unfortunately, in Norway. Hopefully it will speed up your success. But I think it's so valuable for other countries, right? Because Norway is advanced. You told me about Norway wanting to be like the digital avant-garde with the program. And I've been looking and I have found additional proof of this. So a lot of the parents in different countries can really learn from things that you've experienced.
We have a Ministry of Digitalization in Norway, and they just gave a huge report, as you say. We have a goal in Norway to be the most digitalized country by 2030, actually, if we're not already, right? So, we'll see how it goes. We need to do it properly. We need to take care of the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to learn from you, the rest of the world. Is it either laugh or cry, right?
It's both. It's a little both. Yeah.
Just to close, unfortunately, but what advice would you give to the average non-tech parent? How can they help find out for themselves where their kids' data is going, for example, or what steps would you propose?
For me personally, it's been really great to use a tool like AdGuard, which I mentioned. I mean, if you want to look up that one, it's AdGuard DNS. I think you could start with a free plan, and I don't think I pay much.
I'll put it into the show notes, actually. Yeah. Also, the other one you mentioned as well.
Yeah, you also Next DNS, and you have Control D. You have a lot of different things out there to DNS services that can help you. But it can be a bit fickle to sort of get the first device connected. But once you've done it with one device, it's very easy to do the next one, and there are good guidance and things. So I would promote that and give it a try. What you get is very interesting statistics of your own use as well. So I hooked all my family's devices, even the Apple TV is connected to AdGuard. So I can see all see all the stats. So I basically see how many data connections our family is using every week or every month. I can't see what everyone is doing, but I kind of see what kind of websites or domains that we use, right? And there's also good parent restrictions you can put on. You can put on safe search on Google. You have these upsides as well. But the main thing is that you learn about how much data and where your data is going on an everyday basis, which is like super great knowledge. And this will probably give you the same ideas. I could probably test my kids' iPads at school or the PC, and you can start to sort of be that person locally as well. So this is helping bringing real knowledge to the table, both for yourself and your community. So yeah, that's my advice.
That's so important. I really can't thank you enough, because now I've learned it and I didn't know it before, and I'm going to try it. And because one thing is the knowledge. I just know that the data is out, But another thing is seeing it.
Exactly.
And, seeing, and that I'm looking forward to trying that myself. Yeah.
Sure.
So thank you so much. And we're looking forward to
thank you.
watching you from a distance. Yeah. So, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We encourage all parents and loved ones to ensure that the digital footprints their children create at school are treated with the respect and care they deserve. If your school or area hasn't yet leaned heavily into technology at school, we hope these stories will help you ask the right questions when they do. If you have a story to share, would like more info on these issues, or would like to contribute in any way, please contact us. Together, we can make a difference in safeguarding our children's digital futures.
Digital Dominoes.